so it's now technically 10 seconds afternoon, so I can say that. Thank you everyone for coming this afternoon to join us. Today we'll be talking about strategic marketing. In just a moment, Clint will be introducing us, and then the panelists will be introducing themselves. But today we'll be focusing on strategic marketing, and before we dive into that, I'd like to just kind of briefly, once again, just remind you of, for those of you who are new, who MHCE is and what we do. So Mid-South Healthcare Executives is the local chapter of the American College of Healthcare Executives. Our focus is to allow an opportunity for healthcare leaders in the Mid-South area, which is West Tennessee, and we go up as far as Jackson and about a third of the way into Tennessee. But we allow, we provide an opportunity for our healthcare leaders to come together, to network, and to share ideas, to be able to learn more about different aspects of healthcare, and we share that information with one another. Also, if for those who are working towards or maintaining their fellow of the American College of Healthcare Executives, this meeting today and others will provide 1.5 face-to-face credits. So those are always welcome. Next month, we'll have an extra opportunity. Our September meeting, on September 20th, we'll have a networking event in the evening where we'll be able to kind of get together in a very casual setting. Cara, do we have a venue for that yet?
Yes, and it's actually September 21st for the networking event.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And we'll be at Wiseacre on Broad, right? That evening, and then the next day is the 22nd for the panels. Thursday and Friday.
Okay, very good. Very good, thank you. So the 21st at Wiseacre on Broad will be our networking event. And then on September 22nd, we will be here, again, not in this room, but we will be in the Transplant Center. I believe that's on the 7th floor, is that right, Tim?
You're probably going to be on the 4th floor.
4th floor, okay. This information will be sent out in the next couple of days, so it'll be on your calendars. But on that day, we will have 2 meetings. The first meeting will be talent management for bench strength development. That'll be for 1.5 face-to-face credits. And then the second meeting will be improving the bottom line by optimizing patient throughput. That'll also be for 1.5 face-to-face credits. That day we'll also be partnering with our Mississippi chapter. This is our second annual meeting where we're partnering with our Mississippi chapter. Last year we went to Oxford. This year they're coming to us. So looking forward to being able to meet jointly with them, getting to visit and network with them as well. I think that's going to be a great opportunity. And then our October meeting, we're still kind of, our plans are pending. Typically in October we look to have a cybersecurity topic, since October is Cybersecurity Awareness Month. And then November, that meeting is still kind of pending. December, we always have a CEO roundtable, and our normal attendees on the panel are typically Dr. Yugwicki, who's president of Methodist. We'll also have normally Jason Little, who is the president of Baptist. Dr. Coop Wood with Regional 1 is usually in attendance for Regional 1. We've had others who have been in attendance on the panel. That one is usually a very well-attended meeting, and it's always very, very interesting. I found it to be very interesting and informative. So that's just a little look ahead of things to come. Without any further ado, I will go ahead and pass it off to Clint, and I'll let him introduce himself and to our illustrious panelists. Thanks.
All right. Thanks, Scott. Good afternoon, everybody. As Scott mentioned, I'm Clint Cummins. I'm the Chief Executive Officer for the Memphis Medical Society, and a proud member of MHCE. Get to help Cara a little bit behind the scenes, help put some of these programs together, and was happy to serve as moderator today. We're going to be talking about strategic marketing today, which is one of the easiest easiest jobs in healthcare, right guys?
Mhm.
But before we get into that, I want to let the panelists introduce themselves and tell them a little bit, or tell us a little bit about their jobs, and feel free to brag on yourself a little bit.
I'll go first. So I'm Irina Aller. I'm from Memphis. I went to school in Chicago and then I came back. But I've worked in the hospital setting. I worked for St. Francis for several years in the marketing department. Then I went to UCH, University of Clinical Health. And I've been at Campbell Clinic as the marketing director and public relations for almost 4 years. So I'm in charge of all the strategic marketing, also internal and external communications from a public relations standpoint. And then I also run our centralized scheduling call center as well. We wear many hats at Campbell Clinic. So.
Well, my name is Matt Koyak. I'm the Director of Marketing at Regional One Health. I am not from Memphis. I was from the Chicago area and came here about 4 years ago. That was also when I first got into healthcare. So before coming to healthcare, I worked for a small town newspaper company. They owned something like 75 publications in 9 different states, all very hyper-local markets where the big news was who scored the touchdown, the game-winning touchdown on Friday night. They were looking to get into content marketing heavily in a digital space. For a small town, that's a big deal. And they were looking to help their small business clients grow their businesses with search and things like that. So they called on me, and at the time, I was big into search marketing and doing everything you needed to do in a digital space to advertise for a business. And that's kind of what made me fall in love with what I do today. I have a background in graphic design and photography, and my team today is top-notch at producing a lot of those types of materials. So we do what we can for Regional One Health every second we can.
Great.
Clint, before we get started, one thing I meant to ask, there will be opportunities for questions and answers. To make sure we stay focused on topic, I want to make sure that we stay focused. Any questions on just the strategic marketing topic? If we could do that, that would be great.
All right, well, let's jump into it. I've done the best I can to frame these questions as best I can and make them conversational. So I really wanted to start out kind of broadly, a combination of the organizational aspect of your roles, and then more importantly, who. So our first couple of questions are going to talk about the who aspect of your job. And so I'm going to kick that off with, tell me who in the organization is involved in determining the wants and needs of your customers, your potential customers, i.e. patients, and how you get that information.
You want me to go first? So I am very much involved in, I'm never really behind my desk. I am always out in the clinics talking to our physicians, talking to our staff, because I feel like they are the boots on the ground. They are always out talking to patients, they're out in the community. We have over 800 employees, and so I rely on them to have a pulse on the market. And so they have amazing ideas, and so they tell me what's going on, what the community wants, what the market is wanting in terms of healthcare, in terms of our, demographic orthopedics. And so I'm always out and about. The physicians are also fabulous. They tell me, what is the latest, greatest trends? What do we need to be out there marketing? What should we be doing? So to me, it's our staff and our physicians. And so that's what I utilize heavily a lot to do market research.
Excellent.
What about you, Matt?
Yeah, so for us being the system that we are, the biggest challenge that I face is trying to mirror what the physicians, the providers are asking us for versus what administration is looking for. So we'll always have a disconnect there. I don't think it'll ever be both of them wanting the same thing at the same time. We might have a doctor who specializes in some uber specific procedure, and he's like, yeah, I want to do more of these cases. But administration is saying, well, we don't really have capacity for that right now. We have to try to keep focused on what we have capacity for. So my team walks this line of trying to figure out the best way to meet both of those. We're always going to have an amazing doctor who does one or two amazing things that they want to talk about They always want to see their faces in the magazines and on billboards, and we always have to accommodate that. But then likewise, we have to really sit down with our administration and make sure we have a clear understanding of where we have availability for patients to get in and see. I mean, I tell all of our department heads and our providers, and we can turn the hose on, we can make the phone ring, but if no one in administration is ready to answer it, or we don't have availability for that patient to get in right away, then we do this dance if we just burned that initial first impression. So we're always kind of meandering through. So we look to really involve as many people from both leadership and with our providers as we can when we make our strategies, or we put together a strategy to market something. The other side of that is when Dr. Kupowitz says, okay, look, these are the 3 big things we're going to focus on this year. We go, okay, let's do it. So, and we interact a lot with our providers after that direction's been given too, to incorporate them and say, okay, well, what is it about you? What is it about your team, your clinic that is unique and special, and then how can we align that with our overall objectives?
Yeah, and your doctors are going to tell you what's working and what's not. Your staff is going to tell you whether something's working, whether they're not busy or they are busy.
Yeah.
And there's always something to be said about over-promising and under-delivering too. So, you know, you can do a great marketing campaign, but if you can't deliver because you're at capacity, then what are you going to do? So that's the worst that can happen.
Now, I didn't tell y'all what order I was gonna ask the questions in, but y'all are already heading me
Sorry.
down the right road. No, this is a perfect segue. So y'all talked about the stakeholders within your organizations, and talked a lot about physicians, and I heard some themes of administration. I'll call them all stakeholders, but thinking about them, other staff, members of the board, how are you, at a deeper level, how are you using them in your marketing efforts? You talked about faces on billboards, but Matt, I'll let you answer this one first.
Yeah, so we don't utilize our board in that respect. Occasionally, when we have patients that have had some amazing outcomes and they want to talk about it, then we'll involve the patient. We do lots of patient stories. But in healthcare, I feel like we always walk this fine line of telling a patient story, but also trying not to exploit what they went through for your benefit. So we try to do that as tasteful as we can, and it's oftentimes very difficult, especially being a trauma hospital. We have these amazing trauma stories, but we can't always tell all of them. So we'll work with our patients to make sure that they're comfortable. So there's a lot of interaction there. There's a lot of interaction with providers, just seeing, like, do you have an outcome that you want to talk about? Can we offer up you to be an expert on this subject on some outlet or media outlet?
We are physician-led. We're a private practice. Our board is made up of our physicians, so we are very different in that I'm on the administration team, so we work for the doctors. So we do heavily rely on what our doctors do want. And so we do work with them very closely, and so it is very different in that respect. But with the billboards, or, you know, we have 80 plus physicians and, you know, 15 plus specialties. So it's impossible for me to, you know, have all these different billboards running around and all these different specialties being cross-promoted all at once.
Mm-hmm.
So there's definitely a balance even within our private practice to be able to please everybody, but at the same time, you know, given as big as we are, we're now at a point where we are marketing our different subspecialties in our little ecosystem of almost like a little mini hospital system because we are that big. But we do constantly work with our doctors, and they tell us what the needs are every year. We put together a strategic marketing plan, and then I execute it. And then obviously throughout the year, you have to tweak it.
Yeah.
So based on feedback and based on results and those things.
So you're touching on it a little bit. I'm going off script, but hopefully it won't throw you all off. So how do you prioritize that? So in my role, I get a lot of requests from the media, and they want to talk to physicians directly. And so between whether it's something proactive or reactive, how do you decide and determine who's talking, or heaven forbid someone really wants to talk and we don't want them to talk, or we're scared of what they might say? So how do you prioritize that? Irene,
Sure, yeah. I've been lucky in that my doctors are fabulous.
They
And
are.
so
They are.
they honestly won't talk to anybody without asking me first. So they know that anything media related, talk to Irina, here's her cell phone, everything has to go through her. And so I kind of, depending on what the media wants or what a certain publication wants, I know which doctor is the best one for a specific storyline, which doctor I know is going to, talk really well if somebody wants, a public service announcement or something like that. So I think it's really, really important in my job to build solid relationships with all of my doctors. I talk to them all the time. I have all their cell phone numbers. So I think that is the foundation. That was literally almost the first thing that I did when I first started. Was I spent the first month doing nothing but scheduling one-on-one meetings with every single one of them and getting to know them and figuring out what their niche is, what they want out of me, out of my job, how they want to be promoted. And I do that with every single doctor we onboard so that I can then use them when those types of opportunities come on. I know exactly who I need to call, who I need to text, and that way it's almost like it's a no-brainer. I'm gonna call, Dr. So-and-so for this interview. So.
Yeah, so, and my position is very different in that I don't do anything, I don't have to deal with the media at all. So our communications department handles all the media requests. A lot of times what'll happen, well, let me back up. So in marketing, we'll typically sit down planning for the next fiscal year and pick maybe 3 or 4 objectives for the year. Because our budget's small, we need to focus on aligning our budget with some strategic objectives, so we do that. But throughout the year, things come up, and the media will reach out about something, or we'll have an opportunity whether we have a new provider we want to introduce and maybe build some media hype around. So our communications department will then work to kind of find a way to get that provider FaceTime. I haven't met a doctor who doesn't want to talk to the media yet. I know they exist. I just haven't met any of them yet. So there are plenty that come to us and say, like, hey, I really want to be on the digital desk on this channel or something. And we have to try to accommodate them if we can. But if it doesn't align with what we're doing as an overall organization, we really don't. And we might just put that in our back pocket and save it for later.
So those are all great. I want to shift our focus now to head towards a different who, and that's our customers and our patients. So can your primary customer differentiate your services from those of your competition? And if they can, how? And if not, what are you doing to try to position yourself in a different way?
Okay.
So there's numerous ways that you obviously can differentiate yourself from your competition. So you can offer a better outcome, customer service. You can offer better technology, more up-to-date technology, innovation, that special niche that we talked about, and then of course you want to offer a very strong brand. So I feel like those are 4 very important things that could really stand yourself apart from your competition. And so, and I feel like we do that, and then we use those 4 aspects to then go to market with in the local community to promote to the consumer.
Yeah, our position is very unique. I mean, we're the oldest hospital in the state of Tennessee, chartered in 1830 or 1829, the oldest business in Shelby County. So there's a lot of deep-rooted opinion and perception of what Regional One Health is. I cannot count how many times I talk to people and they still say it's the med, and that's an image that the organization. I mean, they tried to they completely changed the organization from what the med was over almost 10 years ago, and then went through the rebranding in 2015, and it just, there's still people, they'll call us Regional One Health, and then in parentheses put the med after it, formerly the med. And I'm like, why do you take the time to do that? The first name was short, I mean, just use that. But, so there's that perception that we are the health, the organization who gives health care to those who don't have insurance, the most impacted from trauma. We have our burn center, so that's, we're kind of known for those things, but there's a whole list of things that Regional One Health does that people are unaware of. oncology. We onboarded oncology over 2 years ago. Vascular services. There's a bunch of elective or selective services that we offer. So I'm always trying to beat the med and that perception with our audience here. So we go to great lengths to try to do that, and that's a problem I inherited. And if you've heard our Specializing in Tomorrow's campaign, that was one that my team put together a little over 1.5 years ago. So that's probably been our main focus in terms of rebranding, of trying to get people to understand what Regional One Health is about. And I think we're doing better today than we were when I started, at least I hope so, because I'm still here. But we do quite a bit to try to look at that perception in the Memphis community. It's hard. It's always going to be an uphill battle, I think, for us. I'm not sure if that directly answers the question.
Well, it does, and I would just encourage you to maybe contact your colleagues at the University of Memphis, because they have a similar problem with people still calling them Memphis State.
Memphis State, very true.
People just do it
We
for
work
whatever
closely.
reason, so
We
maybe
work closely too.
maybe there's a joint event there, maybe
Maybe it's vintage and we can just roll with that.
vintage.
I like that.
I
I
like
don't
that.
know.
Vintage, retro, I like those thoughts. Okay, so the last question was really centered around, how do you differentiate yourself from the competition? I don't know how used it is, but I Googled the term and found it. There's a term called co-opetition, which is where you work with your competitors in a more cooperative way, and that's the genesis of this next question. So how do you work with your competitors in the market? I mean, you look at a community like Memphis, and you talked about it a lot, Matt, the challenges that we have of treating this community for all the reasons that we all know and work with on a daily basis. And there is a lot of collaboration that needs to occur. There was a lot around the pandemic, I would say, from everyone.
Yeah.
So, but maybe post-pandemic, how are you guys doing that? Matt, I'll let you answer first.
Well, and we work, I mean, all of our ortho docs are Campbell Clinic doctors.
Right.
So in that respect, like a Campbell Clinic, we work very close with them. In terms of Methodist or Baptist, not so much. I don't get calls from them, and I don't have a reason to call out. And outside of the pandemic, there really hasn't been much interaction. And I don't know if that's good or bad, or if I was supposed to call someone and didn't. Tell me if that's true, but no, and you're right. And maybe that's an issue. Maybe that's something that we could probably do better. But from a marketing perspective, I've never been in contact other than meeting in events like this.
So no asks to put all those logos on one campaign or anything? I'm
No,
joking.
so there's opportunities. St. Jude, I think, brings all of us together more than we bring each other together.
Yes.
And I see that constantly, and I can really respect that. There's been some different things like our sickle cell, the Diggs Cross Sickle Cell Center that was recently St. Jude, and there was a combined ad that went out with a couple different logos in it. So some things like that, I think, that are more impactful in the community. We've been group notarized, or there's been some group. Sure.
I
Good point.
think when it comes to though patient care, that's when the co-management and the camaraderie does overlap and does come together. Because like specifically with Campbell Clinic, so we've been around for 115 years. And so specifically our orthopedic residency program, we're going to celebrate our centennial next year. So we've trained pretty much half of the orthopedic residents that are out in the community now that are our competition currently too. So they send us patients, referrals that they can't treat just because it's not something that they do every day. And we share patients because ultimately when it comes to patient care and the outcome of the patient and what's better for the patient, competition is no longer an issue. And I think it's the same for hospitals. So, and I think that's the best outcome ever. And when it comes to logos, another example is Le Bonheur. Our doctors are on staff at Le Bonheur, and so we do share logos there, even though, orthopedics, Campbell Clinic, Le Bonheur is two different companies.
Yeah.
St. Jude is a great example too. So those are just a few examples where you could have co-marketing agreements, that sort of thing. But I think the big one is when, ultimately when patient care is involved, it's sort of like, okay, I don't care, egos aside, the patient comes first, and in my experience, the doctors will put aside everything and do what's best for the patient and the patient's outcome. If that means sending it to your competition because they're the better person for the job, that's fine.
Yeah.
But I think it's fair to say, kind of picking up on what both of you said, is when it comes to who enters the first door, there's a lot of competition there. But
Yeah.
once they're in the door, everybody's doing the right thing for the patient. and I
Absolutely,
think that's-
yes.
And
Yeah.
I was speaking just to the marketing aspect. I mean, look at COVID and look at the shooting at Kroger in Collierville. We saw our CEOs get together. I mean, you know, they issued a public statement together about gun violence. They issued one about the pandemic and vaccines. So at the higher levels of organizations, I think there's a lot more interaction.
All hands on deck,
Yeah,
everybody helps
absolutely.
each other.
Sure. Okay, so y'all touched on some of this a little bit. It's time to put humility aside and start bragging a little bit, okay? So when it comes to your job and your niche or marketing for the overall organization, tell me what you think you do well. What are you guys great at? And it can be the broader campaigns that we might see out in the community, or it could be some nuts and bolts stuff within the office that y'all feel like you really do well. Irene, you want to take that one first?
Well, I mean, I think that everybody knows what Campbell Clinic is and what they do. I mean, I think that our strongest asset is our brand identity. And I think that is invaluable and is an invaluable asset. And I think, I mean, I get hit up on a daily basis about, you want to sponsor this, you want to sponsor that, you want to do this, and I'm like, I'm lucky where I can pick and choose what I can say no to and say yes to because of how strong our brand is. I don't have to sponsor everything, I don't have to support everything, because I can, for the most part, stop an everyday person on Poplar Avenue, and I can fairly say with confidence that if I ask them, if you have a broken arm, where are you gonna go for your after hours clinic? For the most part, they're gonna say Campbell Clinic, the walk-in clinic, because we pioneered that. And that's pretty awesome. And I think from an organization standpoint, whether you're a startup, whether you've been in business for a long time, I think that's your ultimate goal is, are you at a place where you can stop any person on the street and you want your name to come out of their mouth when you ask them about your business and not your competition first. So that would be mine.
Yeah.
What better thing to say before
Absolutely.
we're
Yeah.
How about you, Matt?
You're recording this, right?
Yeah.
Send it out to everybody.
I believe in my heart of hearts that we are, above all else, storytellers. In marketing for a healthcare organization, we tell stories. And the problem that we're trying to solve is connecting patients with the healthcare they need. So we can tell a story, whatever the medium is, and I tell my team this constantly. I keep pointing over here because two of them are here. But I tell my team constantly, our goal is to tell simple, entertaining stories regardless of the medium. That's it. If we do that, then we should be connecting with our audience. So the way that we tell that story, that's where our skill comes in. We need to identify the audience. We need to be able to understand them, relate to them, and then find a story, something that, an outcome from our organization that we can then use to reach or touch that prospective patient. So that is where we focus. Since I've come on, we've done a lot more digital than Regional One Health has ever done, and we do a ton of video. We came out with a commercial it's been almost a year and a half now. Our first Specializing in Tomorrow's commercial was nominated for an Emmy, just nominated, didn't win, but it was nominated for an Emmy, and that was something that we produced in-house ourselves. So I feel like the level of storytelling that we are producing, the quality today is by far our biggest strength.
Well, I'll brag on both of you a little bit, and I don't know as much about the inner workings of Matt's role. I know a little bit about yours, Irina, but what I'm sure y'all both nod your head at is you do a lot with the little resources. The marketing tends to be not the top of the list of where folks want to spend, and there's always that question of ROI, which we'll get to in a little bit, but I would say both of y'all do a great job with that. Irina, you touched on this a little bit, so I'm going to ask you to take this one first. What everybody in their role, I feel like, feels that, I guess I'll call it a need to be all things to all people.
Oh, yeah.
I guess if you're answering the question, who are you going to go to after hours, you do want to be all things to all people, but maybe in the context of sponsorship or other internal things going on in the job, that may not be the case. So how are you responding to all those demands and kind of balancing, and I'll use the word prioritizing again, that throughout the entire organization?
I don't sleep. No, I mean, it's hard, but I do my best to, like I said, I do have, every year I put together a marketing plan. And it's quarterly, and I do my best to try to stick to it. But there's always new things that come up depending on what happens, and things do come up all the time that I have to squeeze in. And I tend to only squeeze in big things. If it's a really big sponsorship deal, if it's, truly a really good opportunity that we just can't pass up, that I know is going to require additional time for me. You make it work. Because if it's for the betterment of the company and it's truly valuable and I can quantify it, I'm not gonna pass it up, and it's gonna work.
And I know, to your point earlier, taking care of the uninsured community is a big deal, so how do you all handle this question?
Yeah, so, we try to do a lot internally amongst our team. One of the reasons why I came to work for Regional Health is they already had a graphic designer on staff. They already had a copywriter on staff. In my mind, in my career, if you have those two things, you're in a really good place. Copywriting probably above graphic design because you can find graphic designers, but a good copywriter is crucial to your organization and your message and connecting with your audience. So having a team that is capable of producing a lot of the things we need throughout the year makes it very easy for me to do my job. And then when I have someone come to me and they're requesting something, I hate to say no, so I'll try to find a way to do it. And if we ever reach a point where I know the quality that we'll produce won't be to what I would want it to be, then we look to outsource. So we'll leverage budget or partners. We have a video partner now, Forever Productions. They are fantastic, so I don't have the lighting or the scope or the cameras needed to do something. I'll call them in and we'll work with them. Likewise, if I have a marketing agency here in town, Vallejo, we'll work with Vallejo to do a lot of our more in-depth and hands-on programmatic and geo-targeting campaigns. So I'll just set my goals and let them do the day-to-day manage because I have to do a bunch of other patient stories or something. So trying to do as much as we can with a small but nimble team, and then utilize what funds we have available to go out if needed is always kind of our challenge.
Good points. So I promised we'd talk about ROI, and that's something that I'm always interested in my role and with our organization. So you've talked about you need internal and external resources to accomplish your job, and you're probably measuring ROI constantly with both of those. So how are you doing that in your organization? Matt, I'll let you go first.
You might be surprised. I was shocked that as an organization the size of Regional Health, we didn't have more data and analytics available at my fingertips. Now there's an overwhelming amount of data in the clinical spaces for all of our providers and all of our administration staff, but from a marketing standpoint, there's no way I can say, okay, how many patients did we pick up by sponsoring the Memphis Tigers? No idea. And of course my boss, she wants to know that number, and she understands that that's not something we can, it's not a tangible thing. Whereas digital, you have a very clear ROI. So we try to supplement a lot of our campaigns with something that I can use to physically track ROI. We'll do all kinds of creative things with phone numbers and your typical sign-up sheets and forms on different landing pages and URLs. But we as an organization had to come up with a way to truly prove when I'm spending money on marketing this service, how many new patients am I getting from that? So we focus on new patient acquisition. And we've developed a proprietary engagement metric to look at everything. So I'm talking, interactions with Facebook posts to video views on YouTube channel beyond a minute, podcast listens. All of that gets dumped into a spreadsheet that kind of tells us what is our engagement based on a campaign, and we'll use that. So that's really the only way I can say, okay, we hosted last night's home game in the FedEx Forum for the Tigers. We honored our trauma team. They came down and got the game ball. But how many new patients do we acquire from that campaign? It's tough. It's very tough. And your CFO is going to be the first person to say, well, what's the number? How much money did I get? And it's tough in marketing.
You're absolutely right. I love the phrase, you know, if you can't measure it, you can't manage it, right?
Right.
But something like billboards, like video commercials, how do you can't tell somebody, okay, we're gonna get 10 patients out of that. No, it's impossible. A lot of those types of campaigns, they're pure branding.
Yeah.
But what you can't measure is patient volume. Is that clinic doing better? Did that clinic at that particular address increase new patient visits on a rolling 12-month period, right? And if it did, then yes, you can attribute the marketing that you did in that particular geographic area to that, yes,
Right.
it was some form of the marketing that you did, you can attribute to that growth in volume. Not, exactly directly, but, indirectly, yes, because obviously those patients didn't just fall off the sky,
Yep.
okay?
Yep.
And then we utilize QR codes a lot.
Good.
I find them very helpful, especially on magazine ads. We still do a lot of traditional marketing. So direct mail in certain demographics works really well still.
Does.
I like to sprinkle like a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
So a little radio, direct mail, obviously Google ads are huge. Social media, everything I feel like still has a role. I never put all my eggs like in one basket. Just a little bit of everything helps all around, I feel like.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. We can't afford a lot of television advertising, so what we'll do is OTT, over the top, and CTV advertising for streaming services, and get equal results. We can generate all kinds of traffic to different service lines pages from those types of videos. So
Yeah,
we'll
'cause
do.
who watches cable nowadays?
No, everyone's streaming, and you'd be surprised that when I get the reports at the end of the month of the sources of traffic to our pages, where we had that type of streaming advertising, and it's amazing.
Yeah.
People are coming in from all different sources through streaming services, and it's a fraction of the cost.
So y'all talked about data and analytics a little bit. Are there things around, like how are you benchmarking yourself? You touched a little bit on like if the clinic's performing better, like that's
Yeah.
obviously it. But are you looking at the competition? Are you looking at friends in other markets who do orthopedics or who operate
new
hospitals?
patient versus return patient growth
Okay.
Yeah.
against
yeah.
yourself.
Against yourself.
If you're growing, if your new doctors are growing, that's a telltale sign. If the clinic is doing well, if it's growing, then you're doing something right. And you evaluate it month over month, rolling 12 every quarter. If it's not, change tactics. I feel like for any marketing campaign, you got to give it at least 3, 4, 5 months at the most to give it a chance. That's my
No, I agree.
time frame. That's solid time to give it a shot, because otherwise you're not really giving it a fair chance. And then if it doesn't work, try something different.
Yeah, that's what I tell my team too. Fail fast. If it's not working, let's pivot, do something else. This didn't work, admit it. Yeah, okay, cool.
Yeah.
We'll go a different direction. But you're right. You're exactly right. A lot of our campaigns will be designed for 2 quarters, so 6 months. And when we get close to that end, we'll look at it and say, has it been successful, or do we need to pivot?
Yeah.
And maybe the ultimate benchmark for marketing is, do you get more in the budget next year?
Well, you gotta spend money to make money.
That's right.
I know all CFOs hate that phrase.
They do.
But it's true. Like,
They're
how
like,
else?
meltdown.
I mean, it's not just.
No, that's exactly what I was trying to pull out. It's like there's some internal
It's-
tug of wars that
And
have to go
everything is
on.
getting more expensive.
Yeah.
Swag is getting more expensive.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, everything is getting more expensive, but you need it. I mean, you can't just show up at a vendor booth with rap cards. Like, it's just not gonna work. It's not gonna
Nope,
cut it.
it doesn't
You
work.
gotta have leave behind.
I'm sorry. Good old inflation will get you in marketing almost
Yes.
every time. We touched on tools a little bit, but I want to focus on tools, and whether it's one or you want to rattle off 5 or 10, talk to me about the tools that you're using. Maybe something that's the latest and greatest, or your tried and true, the one you've been using for a long time. But what are the tools you're using to get your job done? Karina?
I am on social media all the time, like all of them. I utilize all of our Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn all the time. Like, I do not get off our pages. Because, I mean, you have to. I watch what people say about us. I'm the one that manages all of our social media pages. So I'm the one that's posting. I'm the one that's responding. I watch all of our, like all the different like moms groups. I'm on all of them, all the different like neighborhood pages. I see what people are saying about us. I'm commenting, commending. Obviously it doesn't say that I work at Campbell Clinic, because that would not be good. But but I feel, you gotta do those kinds of things. You gotta keep a pulse on your organization, because I feel like before it was outsourced, and I didn't like it because I felt like, if you outsource that job, then you still have to do it also, because you're just going to you're just losing a middle person. And it's still going to come back to you anyway, because they're not going to know how to answer to somebody if somebody private messages you, are you open for after hours? Like, or somebody asks you, oh, I'm trying to reach the nurse because I need refills. Or you would be surprised what kind of messages we get through instant messenger. It is insane. So I would rather just all come to me, because I know exactly who to reach out to, how to respond, so I might as well just do it. And it's just one less person to have to go through. So it would be all of our social media channels.
Yeah. I think I'd be remiss if I didn't mention AI as something that we all need to keep an eye on from a marketing standpoint, especially in healthcare. I think there's a lot of discussions that will be occurring in the next 3 to 6 months, probably sooner rather than later, about the ethics involved in that and how patient information is played out in AI. But that said, I think it's a useful tool for small teams. I think not so much to create the content for you, but to help you outline maybe a story about a medical procedure that you don't know anything about, that you have to then create a bunch of content around. So a lot of times I'll do that, and we'll create outlines for stories and then do the research and then build the story from the outline, because it's so simple. You can say, tell me the top 5 facts of focus ultrasound procedure in the tone of Christopher Walken, and it'll do it. And then you can build your list off of that. So I think AI gives us all an opportunity. I watched a video last week where there was a live person interacting with a Tesla AI that was going to sell him a car, and you may have seen it, and it was brilliant, and I could not tell the difference. In fact, I thought the level of sales from the AI was better than any person I'd ever spoken to at a car lot on the phone, and I was really impressed. So I think that there'll be a lot of opportunity for us, especially when we're talking about these complex procedures and things, to break them down to a level that our audience can understand. I think it's very valuable.
It's great. I'm resisting the temptation to impersonate Christopher Walken right now, so I'll spare everyone that.
If you got a good one, you got it.
You
gotta show us.
I was at an industry conference. I'm avoiding that, clearly. I was at an industry conference for medical societies a couple weeks ago, and AI was brought up, and the person orchestrating the conference planned a meeting similar to the one Scott described earlier, where it was a half-day meeting, multiple speakers needed, and literally within 10 minutes, in addition to the agenda, I think it was 6 social media posts and 6 creative marketing emails, and it was done. So Scott, program chair, I'm just saying, I don't know, we might have a
program chair. Parker's program chair.
Oh, well, Parker's not here, so Parker, I'll talk to you through the camera. We might have a replacement for program chairs. I'm kidding. We're not there yet. We love our volunteers with MHCE. So Those are really all of our prepared questions. I'm going to flip it to the audience and see what kinds of questions y'all have for our panelists. Hey, Brian.
So if you had, I'm asking obviously a very hypothetical question, but it's basically, the premise is, what is your biggest bang for the buck is the genesis of the question. And if you had to choose like one media, whether it be, social media, online media, television or radio, what would be your choice in that regard?
Go first.
Google Ads,
Google Ads.
pay-per-click, Google Ads, search ads.
Hmm.
Plus you can track them.
Yeah, very much the same. So the best results for our campaigns have come from programmatic, digital programmatic. So when we're doing geo-targeting, geolocation, specific to an audience, specific to a service line. My personal answer to the question would be video, because I love video. And I feel like that's an easier way to connect with your audience and say very little say a lot in a very short period of time. So I think that connects with audiences better today across social media than it ever has before. So short videos would be also something to keep in mind.
And I think the Google ads tend to be more cost effective.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Especially when they're targeted.
Yeah.
You can really narrow it down and control your spending. And I think
Yeah, you set a budget, and once you've reached that budget based on clicks, you're done. And you can reach that budget, depending on what it is, in like 2 weeks.
Oh, yeah.
Or even a day, and then you can just choose to increase it. But then also depending on what you're, going after, let's say, whatever, you're selling cucumbers, and you can see how many people in Memphis are searching for cucumbers. If it's very little people are searching for cucumbers, you don't need that big of a budget. So it depends, so you can narrow it down to literally that.
Yeah.
Or if you want to only target, like, I want to target females 20 to 25 who live in 3139 zip code.
Yep.
I mean, that's literally, you can fill out any filter you could possibly imagine.
and that real-time feedback and data.
All those
too, is
analytics,
always-
all built in, charge on your credit card.
And then with the geo-targeting side with programmatic, it's very much the same. And I like to show providers sometimes, because when you do those campaigns, you're like literally circling a radius on a map. And I can go to a provider and say, look how many people went into this clinic and then saw your ad for the next 60 days after they walked out. And they're like, oh wow, okay, cool. Does it generate a bunch of new patients? I don't know. But we can see that traffic.
I heard a similar story. It was not in the spirit of co-opetition, like I said earlier. It was definitely competition. It was in another community, so I can talk about it openly. But the hospital was short-staffed on something, name it, right? We're short-staffed on everything, on a particular position. I think it was probably in nursing or something, and so they geo-fenced the parking lot of the competitor, thinking that unhappy employees would go out in the parking lot and not engage, obviously, during work, and that's what they did to recruit away from
Yeah.
the competition. So,
I love it.
there's your free idea for the day,
There you
right? What other questions do we have out there? Hey, Nicole?
Okay, my question is very similar to what you just said. So in situations where you're trying to recruit providers, retain your providers versus, getting more market awareness for patients, like how do you determine what's the priority, and is the strategy different for providers versus patients?
I don't do both, so.
We don't really have an issue with recruiting providers. They want to come work for us.
Is it Campbell Clinic or is it Memphis? And how do you tell?
For Campbell Clinic.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, they seek us out. And so, because we have the residency, we use that as the bulk of our hires. So our residency is 5 years. And so they work with our existing doctors, they operate, and so our doctors get a chance to see, how they do, and they get a sense of who they are as people, but then also these residents get a sense of our culture, and they also get an opportunity to see, is this where I want to work? They lived in Memphis for 5 years, so they get also a chance to see, do I want to stay here? Do I want to plant roots here? So they also already have an idea of like, do I really want to stay here? Do I want to apply for Campbell Clinic? So I guess we don't have to work as hard to market, to recruit doctors to come work for us, so.
I speak on behalf of a lot of provider groups be grateful for those circumstances.
We are very grateful.
I would answer your question and say that you don't have to pick and choose. The only decision you need to make is how much you want to spend on each audience. Because those are two very different audiences, and the way that digital tools work that are available to us today, you can run multiple campaigns. It's just a matter of setting that budget. And it's just like eBay, bidding on something you really want on eBay. Whoever pays the most for that word or that term to get to that audience wins. And once your budget ends, it's done. A lot of times we'll do really small campaigns for something super specific, and I'll say, let's just spend $20 for a month and see what happens. And you might get 2 or 3 extremely well qualified patients out of that, and that's all you needed. You really only need one. But same with providers. I mean, if you know where that market is and you can target them, or you have a specific specialty you're looking for, then run a small campaign and see how it does. Set a tiny budget and just kind of dip your toe in until you feel more comfortable to pump more money into it.
Yeah, because I mean, if you think about it, what's a patient? You gotta know what a patient is worth to you. And so a lot of times, one patient, one surgery pays for an entire marketing campaign.
Yeah.
So you're good. I mean, you know, so you gotta know what everything costs. Thank you.
I think in the Regional 1 example, it also helps, you know, what we've seen in the news about the building and campaigns that y'all are trying to do. I think that is not only attractive to y'all, but it's attractive to the city.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'm hearing daily some of the struggles other provider groups are having with recruiting, and you know, some of that is community based, some of it's obviously the individual practice itself, but definitely good to see what's going on downtown.
Yeah.
From y'all's standpoint.
Much needed.
Hey, Brian.
What is y'all's thoughts on billboards? Because they're, in my limited experience, that they're typically very expensive, and you have to convey a lot in
Seconds.
nanoseconds.
Seconds. Yeah.
And so I've typically stayed away from them, but I'd love to hear y'all's thoughts on billboards.
We do, I have a package with Outfront where we've got 5 or 6 boards around town. They're all digital. And I like the digital boards because I can run 2 or 3 different ads. And there's just so much you have to take into account. And I feel like overall, too many people put too much information on their billboards. You get, like you said, nanoseconds. And sometimes the coverage or the visibility of the board differs through the season too. I mean, in the summer the trees can come up and now you can't see the board for, it's even less time. So I think that for overall branding or one super clear call to action, they're still extremely valuable. So if you just want to have your organization's name out there, you want people to understand what you are, maybe a slogan, no, you don't have time for more than that, then that's really something that's useful for. Or if you, like I said, if you have something extremely specific, call this number for this. I think that they're still extremely valuable. And it's an industry that's kind of, I think, for a while been on a roller coaster ride. And you know, we saw print ads and newspapers pretty much die off years ago, and the print organizations are really struggling to keep their ad volumes up because people just don't read the newspaper anymore. But billboards, we all still see billboards. So I still think there's a lot of value to it.
I agree. I only have 2 billboards in town, and I chose 2 of them specifically because we opened up 2 new clinics.
Oh, yeah.
One of the billboards is specifically located at our East Memphis clinic, and it's right before the street where you turn to enter our new walk-in
Perfect.
clinic. And so it's a call to action directional billboard that says, turn here for our new walk-in clinic. So it has a direct call to action, and it's a trifold on Mendenhall and Poplar, which is a very expensive billboard, the most expensive one in town. It's like $2,500 a month, which is insane. But it's worth it because we needed it. It was a brand new location that we've never had before, so new to the market, and it tells the consumer exactly, turn here to come to our new walk-in clinic. So
Yeah.
and it paid for itself, by the way.
Perfect.
And I had it for a year, and then I stopped because the clinic did great. And then our second one, when we opened up our new location in Arlington, it was on highway, it was on 40, as you're going towards Arlington on 64 by like Wolf Chase, by like the Roadhouse, Texas Roadhouse sign, and it was specifically promoting, hey, we're now in Arlington, heads, shoulders, knees, and toes. So it was really cute, catchy billboard, but it's also very, very quick. But again, you have that call to action. Hey, as you're going home or you're going from work, we're now in Arlington because it's targeting the people who live in Arlington, Lakeland, and Oakland. So it's targeting an entire population base. So again, you have to, I feel like when it comes to billboards, for branding, I don't think it's worth it. It's worth it if you have a direct call to action and you're doing it for a specific niche.
And they're still very expensive.
Yes,
Yeah.
even that one
Yeah.
is, I think it's 2,000.
Yeah.
And it's on an interstate. So
Yeah,
people are
yeah.
going very, very fast, so you gotta think about, like it took me probably a couple months just to figure out the exact message, the exact size of the letters, because people are going very, very fast, so how quickly, I'm not gonna put a phone number on there, I'm not gonna put an address, I'm not gonna put a website, they're not gonna, who's gonna remember that?
Right.
So what am I gonna put, and for them to remember what letter, so it took forever just to figure out the colors, everything. I drove
Yeah.
by it myself a couple times, just to, to figure out what exactly it needed to look like, if I would notice it, how fast I was going, those things.
And digital boards, they are bright at night, but they tone down the brightness, so
Mhm.
color can look different. So everything we do, we end up doing a left and a right version for a left billboard and a right version, a right billboard, and we do a dark and a light version. And a lot of times that'll be it. And I might do with the digital, I can run two, so I might have like a 1 in 7 or a 1 in 8 share of voice, and 2 of those ads will be mine. And I'll kind of tell something with the first ad, maybe just our logo, and the second ad will be the call to action, and I could get away with that. But yeah, it's very expensive. Yeah.
Yeah, I just had a question. If you're asking for a call to action for like a new service or a new clinic, how do you line that up with when that service opens so that they can get some of the kinks out? Like before I think you said it really early on about making sure you can accommodate what you're marketing. So how do you work that out in a new service or asking for a call to action in marketing?
I wait for the practice manager to tell me he's ready.
Okay.
Always. I mean, if I did it when the doctors were ready, I'd run into what you just
Yeah.
said. No one else will be ready, and people will be calling a number that nobody answered. So a lot of times we'll have a provider come to us and say, hey, I want to start doing at-home sleep studies. Can you guys put together some content and some advertising to help promote that? I'm like, sure, we'll do a valuable campaign, and then I'll go to the practice manager. Are you ready to take patients for at-home sleep studies? God, no. We're months away. We don't have accreditation yet. I have all these things to do, and I'm like, okay, good, I'm glad we asked. Because we were about to turn on the fire hose, and no one was ready to take it. So
Yeah.
we work with the practice managers a lot to make sure. And new service lines to spin up are the hardest, right? Because first of all, you're trying to build market share just to announce that you have the service. So we might do like an awareness campaign to start, and be like, hey, coming soon,
Coming soon.
oncology at Regional and Health. And we might do that for like several months. And then when the doctor is actually ready and can see patients, then we'll dive in more specific, like see Dr. Glazer for this procedure, and get more targeted.
Another example, when we have a new doctor coming on board, so you can book online with our doctors, with every single one of
Lucky.
them on our website, and you're booking on the doctor's template. It's not requested appointment, but I will not turn that on until the doctor is fully credentialed. And because that's the worst you can happen
Oh
is
my gosh.
book online, the patient books, they're in clinic. Oh, I'm sorry, they're not credentialed. We're not going to get paid. No, we're not going to do that. So I wait. I'm in tune with the credentialing department, and until they tell me that they're credentialed in absolutely everything, then I'll turn that feature on our website. So you gotta talk to everybody. Otherwise, you're over-promising, under-delivering again.
Well, clearly y'all's jobs are to make your organizations look good. And y'all made our organization look good today, see what I did there? Thank y'all so much. I thought the content was excellent. I appreciate everybody being here today, and good questions from the audience as well. Scott, turn it back to you.
Thank you all so much for spending your time with us and sharing your insights into marketing. Thank you everyone for being here and for supporting us and for supporting our panelists, for your great questions and your good attention. Everyone should have had an opportunity to sign our sign-in sheet. That does several things for us. That allows us to be able to represent to the national organization the attendance that we have here. More importantly, to are individuals, it allows you to be able to get your face-to-face credits. So thank you for signing that. If you have not done so, see me and I'll make sure that you can sign it and get your credits. Just a reminder as well, on the 21st of September, it'd be easy, there's a great song about that. Remember the 21st of September.
Sing it, Scott.
But on the 21st of September, we'll have our we'll have our networking event, followed the next day by our mini cluster, which will be here on the 4th floor. We'll be having more information coming out over the next few days to your inbox, so be looking for that. And if anyone has any questions about MHCE, just please let me know. I have conveniently for you, not so much for me, but conveniently placed my cell number on our website. So please feel free to reach out to me, and I'll be happy to talk to you about any questions you may have. Also, thank you to Cara for recording for us. This and several of our previous meetings have been recorded and will be posted to our website for anyone to be able to view. The recorded sessions are not available for face-to-face credits. However, they are available to be viewed for information if you so choose. So thank you everyone for being here today, and I will see you all later. Thanks.
Thanks.